for applications. So if you're applying in Ontario, you have like one of these OUAC accounts. And I'm pretty sure, as far as I can tell, this is the entire application. So first you start welcome, where it gives you some basic information. Then you just go to personal information, fill out some stuff like basic, where do you live, what's your citizenship, when were you born. I think just on this side, this is everything you need. Then it's contact information, also really basic stuff.
So this
Academic
is similar
background,
to Common App. Like, I mean, these are.
it asks for the same stuff on Common App for like background, but I'm pretty sure that's all it asks for. So when it asks for academic background, it asks like, what school did you go to? So I went to STEM Early College at NCA&T, from like when to when you're gonna graduate. But it doesn't even ask for like what grades you got, or you know, like
Not
which
even the
programs you
transcript,
took.
because normally the schools ask for transcripts.
I'm assuming they might just like, they might look up STEM Early College, look up their mailing address, and maybe request a transcript after I submit the application.
Normally that's how it happens.
I wonder if we should call them and check with them. I mean, they definitely have a strong, you know, big recruitment, or whatever they call it, admissions department. And so
Here's where
maybe
you
inquire just to be sure.
choose
these
the
are the-
programs. So it's like a big school. They have a few different campuses. They have St. George, which is the main one, and then they have Mississauga and Scarborough.
Yeah,
which
it's all in Toronto area. It just different boards.
I think though they say typically St. George is the most competitive and like has the
science
best.
in it. Yeah.
I think with the University of Toronto, it's not most competitive. I think it's still all one campus. It's just, it's so big, and because it's in the downtown, they have those different pockets. So it's not like University of North Carolina, Greenville.
They have different specialties. They have different specialties. I think one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So they have different.
Engineering, I know.
Yeah, like in our case, it's all one campus, just has different parts of campus. You know, School of Music, School of Art.
No, I know it is like that. Like they're still all within the same system, but they do have different specialties, and like some, they will be like different levels of, like it will be easier to get into like Scarborough than St. George.
Right.
Like they have differences.
But there is no
one
essay
asks
there.
for basically like.
So did they ask you for 2 choices, or did they ask you, because normally they ask for 3 choices? So they only asked you for 2?
I think 2 here's the max. Oh, I could add a third one. The
And
thing is,
I
you can only add 1 from each category. So if I add 1 from Applied Science in St. George, I can't choose another one there. So I chose 1 from St. George and then 1 from Mississauga, the other campus. Mississauga. And then it's just document upload, like proof of citizenship. Here it's more just really general information. Activities you've done outside of school. I guess this one's probably pretty important, but even then you only have like 20 characters to type in the description, so there's not much you can really change there. And then I'm pretty sure that's it. Like it just says it overlines everything you have, and then it says submit the fees, and that's what it looks like. And when I look up like does it require essays, most websites say it also doesn't need any.
Wow.
So no references, no essays.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like
I think there was
references.
a document upload. I saw document upload somewhere.
That was for like passport or a green card, like for proof of citizenship.
Wow. Okay.
So
That's
like proof of Canadian citizenship or permanent residency. I think you just need to upload something to kind of prove your identity, but I don't think it's for like a resume or anything.
Okay.
So no SAT, nothing. This is
Nothing.
Yeah,
I mean,
doesn't look
SAT
like
this
it.
year, as it is, many universities are not even going to
have
get the
waived
SAT
off.
score because of the
But normally they
pandemic.
make it optional, Amit. So a lot of them have made it optional.
Yeah.
Maxim, I wonder though, I'm looking at the web page here, and I see that they have, let me share my screen. I think you may be going to the wrong place. So I went to the University of Toronto webpage here, right? And so applying, and I see applying to U of T.
You can see your screen, boss. Are you showing your screen?
You don't see it? Let me
Yeah.
try again. I selected but didn't click share. Okay. So you apply to U of T, but then they have applications, current Ontario high school.
Yeah, I'm not in an Ontario high school. You go to the international application. That's the one I use.
So you did choose international, because I thought maybe if it's Ontario, maybe they already have all that information directly from their schools.
No, I chose the international one.
So you chose here international? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
Okay,
website I
well,
use.
you know, that makes it, I guess, in a way easier for us, but I wonder what's the,
How will
do you
what
stand
will
out?
their criteria Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, how do you show that you're better
is
than
true.
others?
Send them an email if you can, Maxim. If I were you, I'll send them an email asking them where is the recommendation letter, where will I upload the my SAT scores and everything. So let them know
Yeah.
that you're interested.
Maybe I'll call them
Mhm.
tomorrow and we'll, discuss and see what's best. Sophia,
I think
see we have
generally,
here- Yeah, go ahead, please.
like I guess my theory about how it works is they admit a lot of people. Like they're a very kind of prestigious school in Canada, the most prestigious.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But even then, even with that, they still have like a 50% acceptance rate, and they like have 70,000 students. I think the
Mhm.
way it might work is they're very lenient, letting people into like kind of the undergrad programs. Like they'll admit a lot of people, and then instead of like having an essay or differentiating on who they accept based on it, like SAT scores or academics, I think they just begin like differentiating like within people who already go there, like sending them into like the more prestigious programs within the school or to like the uh I think if you do really good in like the first year where you're really likely to get accepted, then you'll like be advanced quicker, advanced to the better programs within the school. So I think they'll just admit everyone. And then you
Yeah, I
have to
probably
kind of
need
like
to,
differentiate yourself out of the people
No,
admitted.
I think Maxim, you may be right as far as it's a Canadian school student concerned, right? But if it's an international student, how do they do it? I know you have a Canadian passport and everything, but still you need to know what is the criteria because we want
No,
you
I
to get
agree.
into
I
that
agree.
school. Yeah,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you are there in that school. So
Yeah.
Sophia, I see we have here another student. Sophia,
Yeah.
which schools are you applying to?
So I'm gonna apply to Hungary too because my parents said that I should do that. And so I will apply to the University of Pécs and also to like another school in Budapest.
Uh-huh.
And I will apply to the University of Zagreb in Croatia
Yep.
because they have a great biotechnology program.
Yeah.
And also maybe to the University of Belgrade, but I haven't looked into that much. But they usually have like later deadlines than US schools.
Mhm.
And I'm also applying to Germany, to Jacobs University.
Mhm.
They also have like a later deadline.
Yes.
And I am applying to NYU in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Abu Dhabi.
Mhm. Are you applying to any universities in the United States or Canada?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to apply to MIT, but like obviously it's kind of just a dream school.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So the reason I'm asking is again, if you're planning to apply to any of the American universities or Canadian for that matter. So for the US schools, the deadlines are like literally right around now.
Yes.
So
yes.
you don't have much time. Canadian tend to be a little bit later. And so again, maybe I'll share it here for all of the students. I don't know how far along everybody is with the schools, but just to give you a preview, so some of the universities that Maxim is applying to. So let me share here. So where's my screen? Again, that's not a full list of the schools that you might be interested in, but it's, the deadlines are very, representative. So we have a bunch of schools here from some local ones like North Carolina to like Carnegie Mellon, MIT, like top schools. And so it's more or less by the deadline. So if you can see here. And so the early decision, we had a whole lecture, the difference between early decision, early action, and regular.
Mhm.
So early decision usually is gone. So that's something that should have been done weeks ago. Early action, most are gone, but there are still a few that would be in December. Like, for example, it seems like we still have a couple of schools here, like, December 15 or December 1. But again, we are almost out of time. And then regular applications. And by the way, if you're aiming at Ivy League, like Harvard, Yale, Stanford, so those like long gone, early decision, early action, they were even earlier. And then
They
when
say
you
though, like if you're not hyper competitive, there's not really a reason to apply early decision to like MIT or Harvard because wasn't it like most of the
the
time you'd be transferred?
Yeah, but
You'd
the
be
good thing with
transferred to
that
regular
is,
decision anyways.
Yeah, they defer you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Arvind got
you'll just
deferred at MIT. Yeah.
yeah,
I
you'll
think
just
they
get to
defer
regular decision
20%
even if
of
you
their
apply early.
applications.
yeah. Like for
Right.
example, Sophia, looking at your MIT thing. So let's take a quick look. MIT application deadline. Let's see if it's even possible yet. because I
For
think
the
we were-
regular, no, I think it will be for the regular.
yeah, November
January.
1 was the
That's all
Yeah.
early action, yeah.
That's
yeah,
all early
yeah.
action.
Regular is down. Oh, yeah,
January
January 5th.
5,
There's
yeah.
still
They
time.
still
January
have a
Still
little
time.
time, but not much at all.
January 5.
Mhm.
That's a month.
And then, so one thing I noticed with the deadlines here, so most of them would be January, January, February, but then we have some interesting, outliers. Like for example, the University of Texas at Dallas. That's the one where I actually went, and they have a very, very strong program specifically in technology. So they're unusual in like the deadline is literally May 1st. So I don't know why it's so late. It's like very different. It's the cheapest one to apply to as far as the application fee goes as well, but I think they just have too much money, so they can afford to be late, but it's very late in that respect. And so I also noticed that most Canadian schools are a little bit later, so not much, but a little bit later than American, so it gives you a little bit more time. So, and
I
then
think
Europe,
schools do
it's
follow
like,
different. Yeah,
yeah,
they
in
follow
Europe,
different
we looked at
deadlines.
some of the leading universities in Europe that have some good, very good, like Groningen, Utrecht, Maastricht, Copenhagen, like those are some of the best schools, technical schools in in Europe, but they are almost all like May. So we have like a lot of time for those schools. So if you want to go to any of these, it's like elite schools in Europe with many programs offered in English, but those have a lot of time. You have like what Sophia said, Hungary, for example, it seems like you will have a lot of time to apply.
One other thing I'd want to mention, I guess like a small point to remember is it seems that if you're applying international, at least to the schools I've applied to, the fees will be like a lot bigger than if you're applying for domestic. So on the Excel, I think you had like it was 70 or something quoted for UBC, but I think that's like per program. So I think in total, if I'm applying to 2 programs, it's going to be like 150. Here for University of Toronto, I'm applying to also 2 programs, and after the fees and everything, it's going to be $240, which is going to be like a lot more than if you're just applying to like an in-state school, and it's going to be like 50 or 60.
That's a good point.
So
Yeah.
that is something to remember. Like international schools are typically going to cost more just to apply to.
And you're
Yeah,
right. Even for the international students applying to the US universities, they have a different, rate than the domestic
And
students.
even the
Yeah,
tuition
yeah.
structure is going to be different. If you're accepted, then the tuition structure is totally different for international, in-state, in-country.
Much, much higher. I mean, sometimes it's more than double. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing, Maxim, that remember that that's Canadian dollars. So it would be the current rate is what, about 70 cents or something like that. So it would be approximately.
It's about 200. I think I calculated like
Yeah, so it's
190.
168. Still a lot.
But still on a higher side. Still on a higher side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's right.
that's
Even
still a
in the
lot of money if you want to apply to like 10 schools.
Well, if we applied to all the schools that we put aside here, so again, excluding some of the elite that we decided not even, thinking that, and not counting the European, so it's like $2,000 just for the application.
Apply. Yeah, exactly. That's true.
And again, in our case, as you see, we have some.
But one thing to remember is the places where you have applied early, Maxim, especially to you. Once you get the decisions, and you get into it, then maybe some of the universities you don't even apply. So I know Arvind got very, very selective once he got into Georgetown. So he did not apply to Cornell. He did not apply to Dartmouth. So there were some Ivy Leagues which he left because he was too happy with Georgetown.
Yeah.
So it all depends. If you get your dream school, then you're sort of cutting up on all those expenses.
You have less pressure for finding another one.
Just to share one more interesting thing here. We met yesterday an old friend in a store while shopping. So I'm not sure if you guys know, so for about 8 years, we've been running a science club from our house. So for about 8 years or so, every weekend we would have about a dozen kids initially from the neighborhood, but then we had kids from all around town, and we would do science. So, like build some sort of rockets or bridges or whatever we would do. And so one of the families was basically another family that participated. And so they have 2 kids, and one is a year older than Maxim. So he was applying to colleges last year. And so he's sort of, all those kids were very smart, and, parents are very motivated because, again, like for many years, they would come every weekend for these science sessions. So obviously, and so they said that they applied to all kinds of universities, like all around the place. And their kid, despite very good grades and very good everything, so their main interest was University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. So our main campus, it's a very, very good school. It's not Harvard or Stanford, but it's very good. And they said that to their surprise, he didn't get into any of the universities at all, except for except for Chapel Hill, the one that they want. and also some private school somewhere in Boston that is like $70,000 a year. So they gave me the name, I've never heard about it. So it must be like one of those private, liberal arts colleges. And so what that tells me is that, you get into a very, very good school, and then you don't get anywhere else, including some like third tier schools locally. So it almost seems like it's some sort of a lottery. Like we don't know why.
It is.
The only thing that I can think of is that one, it seems to be a lottery, to some extent, but also the parents were not involved. They said they didn't even know like what the topics of the essays, like they didn't even look at it. And I wonder if he wrote there something that completely repelled, like maybe it wasn't done well or something, but maybe there was something there that specifically caught attention of the Chapel Hill folks. But it's interesting that, like you apply to many, and you think that, like the lower ones will accept you. And then as you go up in the rankings, then fewer and fewer accept you. And here it's the opposite, like nobody took you except for your number one choice. So likewise, I'm looking at Aryaman. Again, you met him in the presentations. I mean, the kid is a genius. I mean, I've had an opportunity to work with him. He was doing some work, before he was applying, he was helping me with a few things. I mean, he literally had perfect SAT score, perfect grades, extremely smart. I mean, when you talk to him, you see right away that his IQ is like at least 150 and probably higher. And so I know he applied to many schools, and yes, some accepted him, some didn't. But those that didn't, I mean, I wonder, what was the decision making? I mean, did they really get more students smarter than him? I mean, I doubt it. I mean, objectively, I mean, who is smarter than him? So it almost seems like there is a huge element of luck here. It seems like I don't know, I'm not sure what's your impression, but it seems to me if it were purely merit-based, grades, achievements, all those Olympiads, spelling bees, whatever else he won, it would have been much more predictable. And yet here it seems like, Georgetown, elite school, Duke, so they took him. But why, for example, some other schools like, like it seems like it's almost a coin toss. So very strange. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, some universities even have a criteria about citizenship. So if you are a foreign national, then somehow there are some barriers to it. So
maybe I don't know.
If you are a green card holder, things get a little better. If you're a citizen, then things get even better.
But Aryaman has an American passport, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't.
No,
so that's what I was about to say.
I didn't know that. Yeah,
So
I'm
we
not
were
sure.
like in that process at that time, we were in the process of getting the green card, and he was on the EAD, and a lot of people don't even understand what the EAD is all about, right? And
What
EAD
is
is something
EAD?
which is like a pre-green card sort of a thing. So now we are green card holders, but at that time we weren't. So he was in that fishy zone. And I remember talking to MIT, Columbia, because he was waitlisted in both the universities, and they couldn't get his status. I mean, we had a lot of back and forth emails. I was trying to convince them, no, he's a domestic student. No, he's a green card holder. Yeah, so we had those kind of struggles when we were talking to MIT and Columbia. And I know he would do anything to get into MIT. I mean, that was definitely his school of choice. So we had a long discussion. I think the emails went back and forth for a month. And then finally we said, okay, it's over. I mean, we cannot convince them anymore. They are not convinced. So let's just forget about it.
And some universities are like pretty straightforward. They just say, okay, that's domestic student. You've been here for the last whatever.
Duke accepted him as a domestic student. They said, yes, he's a green card holder. Same with the Georgetown too. But somehow MIT and Columbia were not convinced.
Yeah, that's an interesting issue, because with us, we are also in a limbo now. So we've had the green card for 5 years, and we applied a few months ago for the US citizenship. So now we are at the stage where the application for citizenship is in the system, but not granted yet. So therefore, it'd be nice if we could go through this process a few months later. I mean, earlier. Yeah. But I'm not sure how long it will be before. So
But at least you have a green card, so things are.
Yeah. So the green card is here, but the citizenship, I don't know how long the process is. We applied 3 months ago or something like that. So they sent us some paperwork that shows that we're in the system, but not the actual. Probably will.
Yeah, US universities, I think, do not differentiate between the green card or the citizenship. So for them, if you're a permanent citizen, like a permanent holder,
permanent resident,
maybe that's what they look at. I don't know. But as I say, if it were purely merit-based, like you do what you're supposed to do, and based on that, you're admitted or not. I think it would have been a much more predictable process. Another thing that, again, for kids, I don't know, my frustrations here, if I may share them, and professors here tell me if that was your case. But I've looked at the essay questions that Maxim was writing the answers to. And it was my impression that universities look for some, how should I put it in politically correct terms? They look for people who have a beautiful sort of story that makes you cry, where you come from, adverse beginnings, you had all kinds of, hardship and you overcame it, and then eventually you got in. And so it almost sometimes sounds like that if you don't come from some sort of a, abusive family, or if you were not in the military where, you were writing your application while the bombs were exploding around you or something like that, then you almost, don't look attractive to them. Like some of them literally had questions like, tell us about the struggle you had to overcome in your life. And so I'm thinking, I'm looking at kids like, Maxim or Aryaman or others. They didn't have much struggle. I mean, they come from a good family. We gave them everything. They did all the, they went to school, they got good grades, they participated in clubs, they did sports. They had sort of a normal. And so when they ask some of those questions, I'm like, I don't know what kind of struggle, we need to come up with, but it almost feels like if you don't give them that, story that, makes you cry, then nobody, and it almost becomes unfair. So, I mean, like, if you do everything right, if you didn't mess up big time at some point, then you will be disqualified. And so it just doesn't make sense to me. So like, for example, he had both of his arms broken, and I thought maybe we can play around that. But I mean, it doesn't seem like, for a few months he couldn't ride because he was, too cast like that. But I mean, is that a good enough story? So I don't know, like it's a almost makes me discouraged, like it almost feels like maybe we should have sent Maxim to some orphanage or something. And then he would have a nice story and, have a better chance of, I don't know.
No, I think Maxim.
Yeah, but remember, I mean, it's not that all the kids who get admission to.
Yeah, I was about to say
They're
that.
all from like, financially distressed conditions or something. So maybe the bulk of it, probably, 70% or something, they would come from normal, regular backgrounds, some well-to-do families. So it would be like maybe 10% or 15% who would be from financially poor families or something. So it's not that, everyone is like, the rags to whatever, which is.
So the thing is, Raz, to answer your question, thousands of kids are applying to these universities, to the Ivy Leagues. And we really look at kids from Asia, and I'm talking India and China specifically. They have perfect SAT scores. Their writing skills are great. I mean, and their TOEFL scores are like perfect. So it's very difficult to differentiate, especially given where Arman's background is. And obviously, you cannot take all Asians, right, in a particular university. So even though I'm an Indian, I understand that not all Indians can go to MIT, right? Even though they have the perfect scores, they have the perfect writing skills, they've done whatever is needed. So obviously, somewhere we have to give it to the program directors or the managers or whatever, the admission counselors at the universities, that they are looking for something which where they can say yes to an application. Obviously, they're looking at more no's, but really they're looking at that storytelling, and they're looking at some kind of a compelling story. And it doesn't have to be compelling that, you have come from an orphanage or you're in a war-torn country and then you struggle. I mean, those things are true, but they're rare. You don't get not all of those people get accepted to the university. So, I mean, if we are on this side of the table, so it's easier for us to say all that. But when we look at from their perspective, for them also, it's difficult to justify why they say yes or a no to a particular application. So, and having said that, I mean, it felt very bad at the time when we were in the process why Arman did not get into MIT, because we had those back and forth, and we got really, when they asked us for his status, we were like, oh, he's about to get into MIT. And then finally, after a month, we said, no, nothing is happening. But, having said that, he did get into Georgetown. He did get into Duke. So those were great universities that he wanted to go to. So, and it was a good choice. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're deciding between two great universities, I think you're blessed. Both
that's absolutely, many of those kids, as I said, with Maxim, we even think that maybe we don't even dare to apply to some of those schools, thinking that probably chances are very low, given that there will be so many strong candidates. So I don't know. But yeah, sometimes I had a feeling when I looked at some of those questions that Maxim was writing, like that it almost looks like they're looking for some very,
Einstein, yeah,
overcoming the adversity and dealing with, and it seems like if you have that, you will look much more attractive to them. So whereas if everything is just,
but I would just say, don't get discouraged by all this. Just keep applying. Put your best foot forward. Make sure you're honest in your application. I know it's easier to say yes, we have gone through this sorrow or that, but if you have not, then don't say that. Don't make any story. because sometimes whatever comes from heart is the best thing that happens. So, and I'm sure our students, who, these students that we have, they'll get into great universities. In my mind, I have no doubt. I mean, Maxim, for example, is working so hard. So I know for sure he's going to get into the university of his choice. And I'm also sure that we, at one point, maybe the next month or the month later, we will be talking about his decision making, and we will be talking about his choices that he's going to make. So I'm 100% sure in my mind for that. And the same with other students too. So I know you guys are working hard, so keep working hard. I know it takes that courage. Yes, we got to apply it. So keep applying, and believe in the process. Don't just say,
Yeah.
oh, we don't know what's gonna work. I mean, it'll work. So you may
And
have
this happens. Yeah, I mean, all this happens in all different professions, not just the admission process. Even after admission process, you get into the workforce, right? There are people who are not the most deserving, but you feel, how come that guy, reached the top position? Even in the academics, in the world of academics, which we think,
Very
from out,
true.
it is the most holy profession that you can get in. Everyone is good. They're all PhDs. And it's a perfect profession to be in. But I mean, we have seen in our profession too. It's a sort of a rat race for getting the tenure and post tenure and the annual evaluations and everything. Yeah, I mean, it's not so. But just keep going. That's the main thing, right? It might slow you down. You might get into a speed bump, but then just keep going forward, right? And if your intentions are good, then you will overcome stuff. So it should all work out fine in the end.
Yeah, and all the kids who are watching it now, but those who will be watching the recording as well. So what Professor Aurora just said, this is so very true and so important. It's not going to be any different when you're looking for jobs, or if you have an academic job later on. Exactly, like luck plays a huge role. I've heard this expression. It used to be that it's not what you know, it's whom you know. And now they say it's not whom you know, it's who knows you. So you want to be sort of present in social media. You want to be so that people know you.
Yes.
So
That's right.
Exactly.
The network, you should have a good network. That's going to pay off. I mean, make that professional network as strong as possible. And now these days, the kids, they are in social media, and they're making some of them are making very good use of social media to build their own network, their professional network. So that really works. That really works in your favor.
I have a question to the students. So Maxim and Sophia, while you were applying for your application, what was the best thing that you liked, and what was the worst thing that you thought is there? I mean, did you have any kind, now that you've applied to a few of the universities, was there any places where you felt it was the best thing, and places where it was the most painful thing to do? Maxim, Sophia, any experience sharing?
For the most part, most of them were under Common App. So like, I guess a painful kind of thing would be filling out all of like the tax related stuff, like FAFSA. Before I knew how to do that, that's like, I didn't know where to find like the tax returns or like all of the specific information, and it was kind of confusing to submit that. But I guess the good thing about Common App is once you've done it once, you can kind of reuse it. So after that, all the schools are basically just like the same essays, like slightly different, but like overall, like, so I think I like the essays, because even if you didn't have like the strongest like resume or background up until there, you still have a chance to impress the admissions officers with like a really good essay. So like, it kind of gives you still a chance to make yourself stand out. So I don't mind the essays. I just think some of the financial stuff was a bit confusing.
Okay, all right, yeah. Right,
There
thanks,
are two
Maxim.
things, right? So there's one is the FAFSA, and then one is the CSS profile, right? You have to fill in the CSS profile also, right, Maxim?
I'm not sure. I don't think I've done the CSS profile.
What is the CSS profile?
So that was the thing that I mean, I fill that in every year. So that's
for the Georgetown, we did
and the
that.
CSS. CSS is again, it's a common thing where you send all your information just at one stop, and it gets pulled out if you put in the name of the university. So I believe there are two things, and FAFSA is there, and then there's CSS profile also. And some universities that specifically ask that, fill in your CSS profile. Here's the link for that. So check.
Oh, I see.
Did you see it, Maxim? Because it's not something
I see it. I haven't heard like my friends mentioning it or teachers, but I do see it. It does look like something I might want to fill out.
Yeah, maybe you need to do it, because again, something that I didn't look for, but
and every university has some specific requirements, provide us with like the last 2 years returns, and then provide us with X, Z. So everyone has a different thing on the CSS profile. So just check on.
Remember, yeah, even when you get in, every year I think we have to apply. Is that right, Amit? Because your
Yes.
scholarship is determined every year.
Yes, yes. So the financial situation of the household may change from year to year. So every
Oh,
year.
that's for, yeah, that kind of, yeah, I think that might
Yeah,
be something.
yeah. And again, depending on your citizenship status. So one thing is that the school is going to calculate how much financial aid you will get, and they'll have their formulas. You really can't question it. They'll offer you something. But then apart from that, look for external scholarships also. If you are not a US citizen, then you might be qualified only for a few of them. If you're a US citizen, so there are lots of, you've got scholarships for international students too. So even look for outside scholarships, outside what the university is offering. Sometimes the state offers something. The North Carolina state, just to retain people in the state, they will offer some scholarships. So look at that too.
Yeah, they had for Chapel Hill a few. They had like the Moorhead Kane scholarship. They had there was like a few you could apply to. I think for a lot of them though the deadline's passed. I think they'll usually follow like the early decision deadline. But I think there's still a few. Which
Yeah. So apply for that. There are like, believe me, there are like lots of dollars which are just left on the table because there were no takers for it.
Yeah.
And some scholarships they're like easy to get. They'll just ask you for a 2-page essay. Why do you want to major in whatever field you have chosen? And that's it. And if the number of applications are less than what the money that they have in the pot, I mean, you just get it. So keep looking into that. There are lots of scholarships which are available. Just Google about them. Scholarships, college scholarships for international students, or college scholarships for North Carolina state students, and you will get a big list. So keep looking into that.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, I think Isa has just joined in right now. So Isa, can you tell us which schools have you applied for? Isa, can you hear us? Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually submitted my application yesterday for Canada. So I've applied to Queen's University, Western, University of Toronto, York, and Ontario Tech.
Yeah,
so maybe Isa can tell us about university.
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
Right. So
Isa, can you tell us for University of Toronto, do you have to fill in any essays, or was there a place where you have the transcripts to be pulled up or something?
Yeah, so University of Toronto, for some programs, you have like the supplementary essay.
So you do have that somewhere, right? Because we were just looking at it at the beginning of this meeting, so before you joined us. And so it almost looked like there is no essay that needs to be provided. Did we miss something there?
So usually what universities do after you apply, you have to wait a few days. They're going to email you and then they're going to send you the details.
So they do it sort of later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we were wondering. I mean, it can't be such a straightforward answer that just the details and your citizenship and you're done. So, okay. So there will be a follow-up email, then they'll ask for further details and essays and everything. So be prepared for that, Maxim. It's going to be coming.
So Isa, in your case, when you applied, did they ask you like immediately, was there an email, or it came to you after a few days, or how did it happen? Like
for Toronto.
For
I
University
haven't
of
gotten
Toronto.
the email yet because I just applied yesterday.
So you didn't write the essay yet for them?
No, I haven't. But it also depends what program you're doing because some of them don't have it.
Okay.
Oh.
Got it.
So if you're applying outside US, things are a little different. Maybe Europe is going to be totally different application process. Yeah. Okay.
Interesting. Great. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's yeah. So keep us posted, Isa. I know you're applying, so just keep us posted as to what happens next step for the University of Toronto, especially.
So Isa and Sophia, any help you require from us? Anything that we can provide our expertise in, or any essay or anything?
Yeah. So when I do my supplementary essay for the universities, I would just like anyone to read it over and give any advice for that.
Absolutely.
Sure,
we are here for that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sophia, what about you?
Yeah, so as first applications, like my school has to submit like information, and for that, like we don't really have a school counselor specifically. So can I just like who can I add there to submit these?
You mean like
So, things
recommendations?
like transcript, right? The school has
Yeah.
to pull what? Because in Arman's case, it was a transcript and the recommendation letters that went from the school. So what is needed from your school perspective?
Yeah, so like the transcripts and well, I believe like they need some information, like how many kids go to my school and things like that.
Oh, that kind.
You can put the principal's name if you don't have the school name. I mean, if you don't have the counselor, then I think
Counselor,
principal,
yeah.
yeah, or vice principal, whoever, because in US, there are like different principals for different grades as well. So there's an assistant principal for 9 to 11th grade, and then 12th grade, there's a separate principal. And then of course, a principal for the overall school. So, look at the administrators, and I'm sure one of them will be, have you
Yeah.
reached out to them, by the way?
Yeah, so my principal like knows me, so like I guess he could have.
Yeah, he's the contact. So if
Yeah.
you just take him into confidence, tell him you're applying, and do tell him to watch out for emails, because I'm sure they'll send him the emails then.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just suggest that send an email to the principal and the vice principal and whoever's there, maybe the principal secretary, all 3 or 4 of them, saying that you have applied to this university, so and so, and they've asked for a point of contact for the school. So I'm providing the principal's name along with the email address, just to keep them in the loop.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
But these are good questions, Sophia. So keep asking those questions, because you never know. I mean, these are the ones which are really important. And we don't want that at the time when you're applying, they say, no, your application is incomplete, so we cannot consider it. So that thing should not happen. So just be on the top of each and every application, especially the schools that you're really interested in applying for. Any other question by the group? Maxim, Sophia, Isa, any questions that you felt you should have known or you learned during the process when you applied?
I have like a really general question. It's not really about applications. It's just something I've been wondering about. What is a liberal arts college? Like, what does that entail? I've heard it, but I don't know what it is.
Liberal
So
arts.
most of the universities are liberal arts colleges, right? Georgetown is one of them. Harvard is yet another. Princeton, a lot of these are, I don't think so, Princeton is, and MIT are more like science oriented. So liberal arts is more like, your curriculum is more creative. It's more, intuitive. It's more like, so it's more like artsy sort of a curriculum. So that doesn't mean that you will not be offered. Even Duke, for example, is a liberal arts college, and they have a very strong engineering program, right? Same with Georgetown. It's a liberal arts college because their focus is more on creative fields, like law or medicine is very, very important in Georgetown. Then computer science department itself is very good in Georgetown. So again, it depends how they're saying it, but that doesn't mean that they are non-STEM colleges. It just means that it's more creative and more intuitive curriculum that they follow. Vis-a-vis STEM oriented. Yeah. So STEM is more like engineering focused, like completely science. So
Is it kind of like
MIT
a technical school versus like a more applied?
That's what I was trying to differentiate, but we cannot say that Duke is not a technical school. I mean, that's what I was trying to come to. So it's more creative school in terms of its curriculum, but it's not like technical, non-technical. It's more like, it's more creative, hands-on.
It's like how they teach the same subjects.
Exactly.
It's something that historically had majors in literature, arts, sociology, kind of those kinds of disciplines. And I think another, not necessarily, but one of the sort of conditions is also that they allow you to more choices as to what courses you take. You usually can take just about anything around the university, whereas if you get like MIT, let's say, it seems like the program is a little bit more structured, so you sort of go more as a cohort. So, but otherwise, it's not a big difference.
Yeah, and I would just like to add that in the liberal arts college, the gen ed courses that you have would be geared towards that liberal arts field. So you'll have courses, gen ed courses in philosophy, in religion. You'll have a course on religion, which would be mandatory. So the gen ed courses define whether a school is liberal arts or STEM based or whatever. So that's one differentiating factor.
And I think
everything has to take irrespective of their major.
And it's more creative as you really can pick up your things. For example, two universities that I found are highly liberal arts is Brown University and then WashU. And they both they give you that choice. And it's ample choice. You can actually define and create your own curriculum when
Yes,
it comes to
that's,
general education courses, right?
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Vis-a-vis
my
others.
impression too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So
It's
some
a good question.
schools,
Yeah.
yeah, some schools like you mentioned, Anshu, they like right from your first semester, you don't go into the philosophy class or whatever. You just choose what you're interested in. So, but there are very few schools like that. Most of the schools will have a very rigid general education curriculum, which every student will have to follow irrespective of the major. So yeah, that's
And I really love Brown University's curriculum. I know Araman did not apply to Brown University, but when we went there for a college tour, they told us about the complete liberal arts curriculum and how you can really pick up things that you want to do. So they were like, let's say you're doing entrepreneurship along with engineering, you can actually define all your courses around entrepreneurship. So you really don't have to take the philosophy of God or the other courses which are normally taught in other universities. But not in this case. So that's where the real liberal arts focus comes into picture. But otherwise, it's very thin demarcation between liberal arts and STEM right now because all these big universities, they call themselves liberal arts, but they have strong engineering schools.
Yeah.
So the technical, non-technical is not really the focus anymore. And no one differentiates. As far if you're in Harvard or Princeton or even Georgetown, I mean, people know you by university, right? Or even the University of Toronto is so good. I mean, if you get into that, we'll be very proud of you.
Yeah.
So, these are great colleges.
Can I ask one question? Yeah, go ahead, kids.
I think there was Sophia, were you saying something?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
No, it wasn't me.
Okay, any question?
Yeah, I have a question, sort of, again, it's unique to Maxim's situation, but I would like to get your opinion. So there was something that he asked me yesterday that made me, sort of thinking. So he's going to this high school that is part of the university. So it's the university is North Carolina A&T Agriculture and Technology University, which is a historically Black university. And it's specifically technical. It's only STEM. It's one of the best technical schools in the state. So overall, people don't really know much about it, but in the technology sector, it's actually pretty good. But it's not even close to like Duke or Chapel Hill within the state. So it's a school. So it's good, but it's not elite. And so we originally thought that we would not even be applying there and instead aim higher. But the specificity of Maxim's program is in high school is that they complete the high school courses in 2 years instead of 4. And for the last 2 years, they take university courses at the university with university students. And so by the time Maxim graduates, for example, he will have 19, if I remember correctly, university college courses. So 57 credit hours. And so if he stays in most North Carolina schools, but definitely at A&T, he can get his bachelor's in 2 years. So he's taken already half of the courses. And so he said that some of his friends who are, again, extremely smart and probably could go anywhere, they deliberately plan to stay here at A&T, finish bachelor's in 2 years, and then move on to master's elsewhere. And so while everybody will be spending 4 years to get bachelor's, these guys will be graduating with master's at the same time. And so it's nearly free, I think, if you graduate from STEM early college and stay there. So I think they give you full stipend, or at least there is a good chance. And so they say, instead of trying now to compete for the best college, the most elite, why not finish the bachelor's here and then for master's apply, or maybe go directly into PhD, apply at elite universities. And so, as I said, we never even thought about applying to this one, thinking that it's, too low a ranking. But then again, it is an engineering school. It is
It's actually not even that badly ranked. It's the #1 HBCU, and they're gaining a lot of funding, and they're actually pretty strong in
Yeah.
engineering. Like,
and so I don't know. I mean, would that be
at this
like,
point they're like on par with NC State, maybe even better.
yes?
So Max, here's what I'll say. I understand the question, and I think that's one of the same things which our youngest son Amay is into. So Amay, in his high school, he can actually take courses at George Washington University. In fact, gets his associate's degree, which is actually 2 years in George Washington, and then the remaining 2 years he can do immediately as he finishes school and gets his bachelor's. But really, in your case, and that's what I even tell Amay and everyone else is, It's good to have that college experiences because obviously your other universities, your dream colleges, your reach, your target that you're applying to, they are looking at those college courses and saying, yes, Maxim is worth it. And, maybe I have to take Maxim. We cannot say no to this application. So obviously that's your way to get into those bigger universities or the universities that you really want to apply to. In terms of time, you're not losing anything. I mean, even if you graduate early, it's nothing's gonna change, right? Even if you graduate 2 years later, it's okay. Yes, I would apply if I were you. I'll apply to North, whatever A&T University, just because it's a choice to me. It will be like a decision making, but it will not figure out to be on the top of my list for decision making just because I'm taking less amount of time or less money for that university. So I would still go for the quality of the programs vis-a-vis, the time and the money because, you are so young. I mean, even if you take one more year and take a break here and have a study abroad option, do that. So really, I mean, apply. Yes, you should definitely apply for A&T just because it's an option. And it's a good option, obviously. But having said that, don't make it just the option because, you have better options that will come because of your courses at the college, at that A&T University. So that is my take on it. I don't know what Dr. Amit Arora has to say to that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's always good to have choices. So apply right now. And when the time comes to take a decision, if you have choices, it's a good problem to have. So if there is an opportunity, definitely apply for it. Once you get the admission letter, you get accepted, then you can make your final decision. But it's good to have choices always. Yeah.
But as a general idea, so if you have a choice in 4 years to complete college and master's, so it's in this case, it's not the idea that he would be done in 2 years and move on to a career, but rather follow up then with 2 years of master's at a better school. And so you still are for 4 years at a university, but by that time you have a master's and potentially also, once you finish the bachelor's in 2 years, maybe you will also look more attractive for the master's programs. Is that a viable strategy at all? Because again, I originally didn't really care about sort of saving time because college experience is college experience and you want full college experience.
Exactly.
But being on campus for 4 years, it seems to me like it doesn't really matter if you're bachelor's or master's. But if you can complete 2 degrees in that same very time, why not try that? So I'm not sure. Or am I overthinking it? Because again, as I said, didn't even occur to me until he said that some of his friends are thinking about doing it. And that's where I was like, that's interesting, maybe. So I don't know, what's your take on
I know Maxim is good and I know he's a good student just because I've seen him in these sessions. So I know even if he gets into a good university and if you're trying to cut short the time, you can have accelerated masters. And a lot of our students do the accelerated masters in 4 or 5 years time frame. Araman right now is trying to get his accelerated masters in 4 years, which means he'll complete his bachelor's plus masters. And again, it's a tough deal. And we always tell him, listen, you're not losing anything in time. Even if it takes 5 or 6 years, it's okay with us. But he wants, and I know kids today, they want everything, as quickly as possible. So if you have that kind of an aspiration, remember colleges are going to support that. So even if, let's say you get into Columbia or you get into, the University of Toronto, they will give you that option of accelerated masters. Professors will work with you. Your college level courses will not go lost. I mean, some of them maybe, but some of them will be accepted for your, maybe used as a waiver to get into the higher level classes. So you will not miss much in time, but I would still say University of Toronto versus North Carolina A&T. I will go for University of Toronto any day, right? So that let it be a choice and an option. Apply for that A&T for sure. But in case if you get into a good university or the university of your choice, then obviously there's no question. I mean, go ahead with the university of your choice. Time doesn't matter. You have time. Think about those students who are applying for medical field. I don't know if you have seen their pain. They have a pre-med for 4 years. Then they have those examinations to take. Then they go into the medical, which is again 4 years. That's 8 years without even having any. So that's only bachelor's we're talking about. And then they go into their master's and specialization, which is like 2 or 3 years more than their residency. So for them, we're talking about 10 to 12 years of a time frame before they become doctors, right? So you guys are much better off than the medical students. And they don't have any set career. Even I know people in medical, and I've talked to the students, And most of the time I wonder, they take those AP college courses, but they don't even use those courses, because I think I've heard from them saying that after your pre-med, if you want to get into a good medical school, the medical school looks for your degree courses from the university and not at the time when you were a high school. So that's a problem. I mean, so that is where we have to think about time, because they're looking at 10, 12 years of their life wasted, or not wasted, but just spent on medical, just the medical field, just becoming a doctor, right? Vis-a-vis an engineer or a computer scientist or something else, it's much faster. So I would not even think about time at this moment, because you're not applying for medical school. Yes, if you were applying for a medical school and you're a pre-med student in the US, it takes forever. That's for sure. And that's the reason I guess doctors earn more than anyone else, because they went through the rigorous process of education.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it. I mean, I would say keep it as an option, but if you get into your dream college, don't even look at anything else. Just go for your dream college.
Yeah, that should not be a deciding factor that, this college might offer me 2 degrees in 4 years versus another very good university, which is just offering a regular bachelor's degree in 4 years. So that should not be the deciding factor. Maybe something to consider, but probably I would not go in for as, that's a big deal. So, and
think about us, like I was saying, Amey, he wants to do this George Washington University. I'm not too excited for that AA program, because I still want him to be the high school experience more. But anyways, if he gets into it, and then he says, no, I'm not going to go only for George Washington University and not apply for anything else, I would not let that happen. I mean, I would definitely encourage him to apply to other universities, because they are better than GW. So again, so I know those are good choices, and Maxim definitely have that North Carolina A&T as a choice. But if you get into the real dream university, your reach university, go for that versus anything else.
Yep. Very
So
good.
Maxim, any other
That's sort of smart. Yeah, that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. Because sometimes I think there's also peer pressure, and I do understand where your own friends are going for that university and you want to be with them. But remember, when it comes to career and your own academic profession and career, it's more than it's not just friendships, right? You're building your own career. You're laying the foundation of your own career, and the stronger the foundation, the better it is. So, and if you think that, let's say MIT or Columbia or University of Toronto, they're going to give you the best foundations, then go there vis-a-vis any other college.
Good point, yes.
And you will make friends regardless, right? So, any other question by Sophia, Isa, or Maxim?
Well, I think we are out of time anyway, so thank you so much. Very informative. I think according to our schedule, we have only one more meeting left, and so that concludes the program. So by that time, I assume most of the students either will have applied, or at least there is everything that they need to know to finalize the applications. And let's have a final review and advice at that time, and then I guess the students can always reach out to us for additional information as you're finishing up your applications.
Yeah, feel free to share the essays anytime. We really don't have to wait after 2 weeks for our next meeting. If you, for example, I know Sophia is, if you see any essays, and Maxim, if you see an essay for University of Toronto, please reach out. Please let us know and tell us how we can help. If you just want us to vet your essay or give you options or choices of what to write, we'll be more than happy to have a one-on-one meeting, like a Zoom meeting with each one of you to discuss that. We want you all to succeed. So we want to make sure that you get into your dream colleges so that we can talk about you in our next program. So, all the very best, and keep us posted.
And any other question also, you might just feel that, this is too small a question, too stupid a question to ask, but just don't hesitate. Just reach out, not any other essays and any other question.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Very informative. So learning a lot, and good luck with your applications. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All the very best. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.